This is Salaam Radio, Peterborough's Muslim community radio. Broadcasting on 106.2 FM and online.
Assalamu alaikum and good evening and welcome to another Friday Night Prime live on Salaam Radio 106.2 FM. I'm Akil and tonight's programme is unlike any we've done before. Over the next hour, we are going to have an honest conversation about addiction, mental health, recovery, and the stigma that exists within many of our communities. This conversation isn't about judging people. It's not about glorifying drug use. It's about understanding the human being behind the addiction. Behind every statistic is someone's son or daughter, someone's brother or sister, or someone's parent, and perhaps someone listening tonight. My guest this evening is Safyan. Firstly, thank you for having the courage to join us this evening. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
It's good to see you in the studio with me. It's been a while. Alhamdulillah. So you're listening live to Salaam Radio 106.2 FM. You can also watch us live on Facebook, YouTube and Twitch. If you'd like to join in the conversation, you can call us on 01733 602 133, or you can text the show on 074 11 191062 or comment on our live streams. If you or someone you know is affected by what we are discussing, remember, you don't have to face things alone. We'll share sources of support later in the programme indeed. I want to start at the beginning. Tell us about the person you were before addiction entered your life.
So, born and bred in Peterborough, as you know. Childhood was all right. You had your normal dramas, family dramas and that, but nothing major. I was quite sharp in school, but I had no interest in school. I was always attracted to the wrong things in life, even from a young age. And I don't actually know why, looking back at it now, because my older brother, he, mashallah, he was the ideal child, never done anything wrong, studied. I had the same opportunities, same everything else, but I took a different route in life. And that started quite early, actually.
Was there any sport or anything at school or anything like that? Was it just you decided, I'm actually going to be doing something completely different?
When you're growing up, as you know, your environment has a big influence. And no one forces you to be in an environment, but, I made the choice that I wanted to be around certain people, certain environments, and doing certain things. And and there's peer pressure as well.
So what kind of age are we talking here?
We're talking 12, 13.
That is really, really young. So
12,
from that age of 12, 13, then you first started to see that you decided that your course in life was going to be different, certainly different to your brother.
Obviously, I didn't know that. Yeah. I just thought, I'd be able to do, because I was attracted to bad things in life, at a young age, starting from cigarettes, and at a very young age started smoking. I still remember the first time I had a cigarette.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I can still remember, I'm thinking now, it was in the 80s. And I was at my relative's house in London, and they had a leather factory, okay? And in the leather factory, they had a snooker table.
Yeah.
And my cousin, he used to smoke.
Yep.
And me and his brother, we were similar ages. And I can tell you now, he had this, I still remember, do you remember there's some cigarette brand called Royals?
Of course, yeah.
Right, he had this packet of Royals. I think they used to come in a pack of 25. Yeah. And it was him. He was old enough to do it, but there was a couple of others with us there at the time as well. I think in the 80s, everyone just decided, let's just try this, and there was a coughing fit everywhere. But I see what you're saying. You're thinking, what is this? This is something new. So if you were to look back at that age where you first decided, or in that peer pressure environment, in that group, were there any warning signs? If you were to look back at it now.
No, because I think when you're that young, you don't look that far. It's just, what am I doing right now? Who can I impress right now? Can I mix in with this crowd right now? Yeah. Can I keep up with these pressures around me? And you just go with the flow. And with me, looking back, I always claimed I did certain things before I actually did them.
Okay.
And looking back at it then, it was like, if I said I smoked, I hadn't actually smoked it, but I said I did. If it was weed, before I smoked weed, I said, I smoked weed. Because it's just something you say.
You're just trying to fit in with the crowd, aren't you?
You just play this image, don't you?
And
And growing up listening to Tupac, as you know, that had a good effect as well. Not good, bad.
Everybody was listening to Tupac at that time, to be fair.
As you know, I had a certain cousin who loved his rap music.
This is true.
You know, and he, introduced me to rap music at a very young age.
Yeah.
We sell the cassettes.
Yeah, I mean, wow, when I was showing our age, aren't we, the cassette?
Yeah.
But you are right. I think late 80s, certainly the early 90s, a lot of the, Asians, friends and our, peers and so on, everybody was into rap.
Yeah.
You either were into Biggie or you were into Tupac,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And there was the whole people battling each other, who was the
West
best.
side, east
West
side.
side, east side. Yeah, this is bringing back a lot of memories, Safyan. So talk me through it then. So, you're smoking and you're 12, 13 years old. You're trying to be in with the crowd. All your friends, I'm assuming, are doing the same. Yeah. So you're going through school life.
I just want to say something first. I know as Muslims, we're not supposed to expose the things we've done wrong, but the purpose of this is to help somebody.
Absolutely.
So I believe that's the intention. So inshallah, Allah accept and Allah forgive, and so for me, I still remember, I was at school, I went to King's, and there's me and a few of the lads.
Which was not easy to get into when you went to King's.
Yeah, because my brother got in, and he was, mashallah, very intelligent lad, and I just got in with the flow with it, but when we were there, I think I was in year 8, and one of the lads I used to go to school with, Pakistani lad, there's only a few of us then, because them years they never used to take many people on, and he says, let's go for a joint at lunch. And my house, where my mum and dad's house is, it's right around the corner from King's, and the back of that house is where Henry Court is, so we used to go and stand there and have cigarettes at that time. And he pulled out hash Rocky, what we used to call Rocky back in the day. First, I'd never seen it before. But I acted like I knew what it was. And we went to the back of the house, and he started, joining the Rizzlers together. And I was thinking, I'm fascinated. I think, what is this guy doing? But I'm acting cool, I'm acting cool. And and he made the joint, and he lit it, passed it to me. And I don't actually know how I'm supposed to react at this time, what it's going to do to me, but I've already said before that I've used before. Smoked and nothing really happened, to be honest, at that time. I didn't really feel anything.
And did you go back into school?
Yeah, I went back into school because nothing happened.
Yeah, nothing happened.
Yeah. But I acted like something happened.
Okay.
It was like playing the game again, and trying to mix in. And that was the start of it, and from there, when we were going into our 14s and 15s, people my age group were either starting to drink or it was smoking. You had one or the other. Yeah. And our drink was never, I didn't like the smell. It was never for me.
Yeah.
And, but weed come in, as in cannabis, and that stuck with me for a very long time, and I wasn't smoking regularly then, but through my teens, I was smoking and I was enjoying it, because now looking back at it, it was a switch off from life. What was going on at home, what was going on in your life. It was getting zoned out from it.
Yeah.
It was a way to escape your reality.
Yeah.
Didn't know that then, but looking back at it, it's escaping reality. And I was smoking up until my 17, 18. And now, we started going out, nights out, partying, raving. And I was the only one in the nightclub stoned. And that's a really weird sensation. I was the only one there. And the drink, I tried that, but it was never for me, But then when I was 18, the same thing happened again. Cocaine came on the scene, and it was around my age group. Certain people were starting to use cocaine, so the word was out. And I remember I watched the movie Scarface, and that I didn't realize then, but it had an effect on me in regards to cocaine. And again, I claimed I used it before I actually did. And one day, we used to have a house on Harris Street where me and some lads used to just chill out, watch movies and stuff. And one of the boys has turned up with some cocaine. He's made some lines. And I was sat there and he goes, go on. And I'm reluctant because obviously, at school you heard about Class A. They used to tell you about kid died from ecstasy, but you forget all of that. You forget all those, warnings that you heard when you were younger. And I did it. And that took me on a 20-year journey from there.
Wow, 20 years
20
from
years.
that one line. How old were you then?
18.
So you're 18 years old. First time you've come across this drug. You've seen it. Obviously, there's peer pressure because people are sitting around in the room, so you have to save face.
Yeah.
And you've tried it, and that's essentially the trigger point and taking you on a 20-year journey. That's just mind-blowing. But a text that's already come in already from an anonymous person saying, can you tell us, Safyan, it takes a lot of courage to speak about this. I remember the 90s as well. Cannabis was a huge thing in my school. Thanks for the message. Do leave your... I understand why people don't want to leave their names, but please do get involved in the show. You can text on 07411 191062 or comment on the live stream, just as this person had done just now. Okay, so your group of friends, did they stay the same at that point?
Yeah, I had quite a big social circle.
Okay.
You always had one group that you could jump in and go with somebody else. I always had I was, as they call it, a social chameleon. I could fix in with the religious brothers, the cricket brothers, the partiers. It was something, it's skill. And when I've got into recovery, I realised a lot of addicts have that, that trait.
Is it because you're trying to not just mix in, but I guess mask in many ways other things that are going on around you, so you are just joining in to go through that sensation of goodness, whatever that may be, for that short period of time before you go and do something else?
I think looking back at it now, there was a lot going on in my personal life, as in home life, at that time, and it's again escaping. It's escaping that reality again. You're around certain people, you forget where what's going on with your life, and you create characters for yourself, and you just mix in with certain people
and you play the role.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so cocaine comes in, and that was it. You just started like a love-hate relationship at that moment, and just started. Did it become part of your daily life?
No, not at the start.
Okay, and when you talk me through, then obviously cocaine is an expensive drug.
Yeah.
It's not a cheap.
Yeah,
it's more expensive than cannabis,
Yes,
for example.
yeah.
And I hazard to say probably harder to get hold of in comparison to at that time anyway. But things have changed, of course they have. But when you started getting a job and you're in a professional capacity, were you still using?
So I used on and off for the first 10 years. From like 18 to like 28, and it was, like you said, it was expensive, so you always shared with people. You chipped in together, and it was just a party thing at the start. Saturday night. And
okay, so it's like a social thing.
Yeah, okay. That's how it started, because first you couldn't afford it, secondly you weren't addicted as such, you didn't have that craving for it, and it was enjoyable. And I'm
just trying to understand. So you're still smoking hashish, right?
Yeah.
Or cannabis, like weed, and then you're essentially topping up that buzz on the weekend by having cocaine.
So what's happened is weed became a normality.
Okay, so that
was no longer a drug.
So just daily.
It was a normal procedure, because smoking weed. I wasn't going to bed till I smoked weed, and it became like we play snooker, you smoke weed, you went to the cinema, you smoke, we went out with the boys, because the people I was with were all smokers.
Yeah, so essentially became part of what you did as a group.
It wasn't seen as a drug anymore, and that's one of the problems with it. It's not seen as a drug.
I spoke to a few people actually before we did this show this week, and they said to me when they were younger they were really big weed smokers, and they said one of the things one of the reasons why they would get together was because they had that in common. Like, let's go and chill together and do this and just talk about the world.
I remember somebody said to me at that time, they said, you'll know when it's a problem when you're smoking on your own, and that came quite quick for me, like smoking on my own. I still smoke with the boys, but then before I go home, I would smoke, I was joint to myself or in the car, but like I said, weed stayed with me up until I got clean.
Just take me back to the point where you said you were smoking on your own. What was happening inside your mind during that time?
At that time you don't realise, but the craziest thoughts go through your head. You unravel, start thinking about things you don't even need to be thinking about. You start unraveling your past, and you realise that you're becoming delusional slowly. You're starting to see things for what they're not actually there. You're starting to take people for. You get suspicious about people. Your brain's playing games on you, which is the first signs of psychosis. Drug-induced psychosis. I didn't know that at the time. The paranoia, which we used to joke about at that time. You're paranoid. You're getting pranked. But looking back at it, that was your nervous system playing games on you, telling your brain that you're putting a substance in your body that shouldn't be in your body. But it started to really play on my mind at that time, started to affect my emotion. And then it got to a point where I couldn't function without smoking weed. I remember, and this is going to sound low, but there was a wedding or something, and I drove the family to Alum Rock Road so they can do shopping. I stayed in the car park all day, And I just smoked and stayed there, and I zoned out for the first few hours. There was no other way of me getting through that little procedure, with the family.
Wow.
Or even doing a journey with the family, the drive. So I'd have a little smoke before I got in the car. They're carrying on doing the talk. I'm zoned out to the world. And I've got family in the car at the end of the day, and I'm not really with it, but I think I am, because it's normalised drug at that time. But this was in my early 20s. I had my son around that time as well. My son was born, as you know, son. He was born when I was 20. But I was still living that life.
You're a young dad.
Yeah. I was still living that life, and I was still coming into that life at that time.
And you felt like this was still the very beginning of what was going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay, Katie's just texted and she's asking, can you ask Safyan, what does addiction actually feel like from the inside?
Active addiction, when you're in addiction, it's a prison. It's a prison. You feel locked. You can't break out of it. The temptation's so strong. Because once I got into recovery, I realized what addiction is. And addiction comes in very different levels. There's some people who can go out on a Saturday night, have a few lines, have a few drinks, they carry on with their life. But for somebody to wake up on a Monday morning or Monday afternoon and think cocaine or think drugs or drink, that's not normal. And so addiction is a point where you've crossed this invisible line of control. You've lost that power of control. You've lost the power of choice. You ain't got a choice no more. I can't go without that. It will take priority over anything. I'll lose my morals. I'll lose my priorities over that drug.
And at that moment, did you actually recognise that was actually happening to you?
No. As with many addicts that I meet and work with in recovery, they're the last people to see it. I was the last person to see I was addicted. My, close people said it to me, you've got a problem, man. And I was like, no, I've got this. And you lie to yourself, you lie to yourself, I've got this, I'm going through a bad patch. Bad patch lasts 20 years, but you're going through a bad patch. I've got this, I've got it under control, I'll sort it out. And the more you tell yourself something, you start believing it, and so I believe I was the last person to accept and realise that I was an addict. And
how long did this carry on for?
As in what? Sorry, the using?
So now it's building up now.
So in my 20s, it's gone to late 20s. I think I got about a year or two clean. I got attached to brothers in the masjid, and Deen became a big part of my life. Then it was. I think we were about 27, 28.
So 27, 28, religion comes into your world.
Yeah.
While you're still using, obviously.
I've stopped then.
Oh, so you've stopped.
I've stopped. Yeah.
Okay, so did you? What caused you to stop at that point?
I got myself into a bit of trouble.
Okay.
I got myself into a bit of trouble on the night out, and I needed Allah's help. And I remember going to the masjid, Salaam, and meeting one of the imams. May Allah bless him. And I sat down with him. I go, Morsab, I've got this serious issue. He goes, stop. And I remember what he said to me. He goes, stop the bad things in your life, pray your salah, and just turn to Allah, make tawbah. And literally that problem got lifted. I stopped the drug. So I got a year and a half, 2 years clean. But then obviously when that problem lifted away, that fear, and then I got sidetracked again. And I ended up back in that life. But this time it was different because I picked up from where I left off, and it started to go down a very, deep spiral very quickly.
Many people think addiction is simply a choice, but professionals increasingly understand it as a complex condition involving biology, psychology and environment, as you've mentioned, and often intertwined with some level of trauma, stress or other challenges. But that doesn't remove personal responsibility of a person, but it does remind us that recovery often requires understanding as well as accountability, doesn't it?
So what I've learned is I believe in the 1980s it was registered as an official disease in America. In their book of medicine, it was an official disease. Now, you're not born an addict. You don't start off as an addict. So that initial choice is a conscious decision. You made that decision to pick up a drug and do it. So you can't blame that on anything. You could blame it on your environment, but we made that decision. We weren't addicted when we picked it. But it gets to a point, not with everybody, it gets to a point with addicts that, like I said, you cross that line where you lose the power of choice and you lose the power of control. And now you're ill. In recovery, they call you sick. You're not well. What you're doing, the way you're functioning. So somebody not to eat, sleep, and use drugs for days, locked up in a room, losing their sense of hygiene, losing their sense of health, and their family and their surroundings. They're not well. They don't want to do. They've stopped enjoying it. I stopped enjoying it a long time before I stopped. but I couldn't stop myself using. And that's what addiction is. It is a disease, you know, because there's people who use drugs for 20, 30 years, but when they want to put it down, they can put it down. If there's a certain situation, a wedding, a health issue, you can put it down. But there's some people who can't. They just continue.
And we often think addiction affects one person, but in reality it affects everyone around them. So tell me, how did your family experience this with what you've just literally described now?
I class drugs and alcohol as poisons because they spread. You know, they have collateral damage around you. You know, they spread through you. Firstly, it affects you. Then it affects your direct, as in your wife, your kids. And you can't see it as an addict that it's affecting them because you think, okay, I'm still providing for them. They've still got a roof over their head. You know, they're all right. But emotionally, because they don't see you as the same person. You know, you change as a person when you're in addiction. And it does a lot of emotional damage. And the you know, my wife went through hell because of, you know, my addiction. She went through hell. And may Allah bless her with the highest rank, you know, in this world and the hereafter. You know, she held me through, you know. And but my parents, you know, I was at the you know, the hardest part of my addiction. I was at my parents' house, and I was trying to hide it from them, and I thought I was doing a good job of that. But I was walking around the house like a zombie. They see me in and out the house at night, you know, and they knew, you know, but I believed I was covering it really well.
So they knew, but you hadn't informed them?
No, they confronted me, and I denied it, obviously. I denied it. And because I wasn't drinking, you know, with cocaine, it's not like you're going to fall all over the place. You're going to be a bit weird, but you're not like, because with alcohol, you lose control of everything around you.
Yeah.
For me, it was just weed and cocaine. And so they were seeing me getting, you know, paranoid. It was having, you know, I was getting depression. I wasn't myself. I was losing a lot of weight. And I remember my mum and dad would cry, you know, and they would cry. And sometimes they were probably too ashamed to even confront me about it, but I could see I was killing them, you know. And I remember one day I was walked into the house, and I'm trying to act all normal, late night, and my dad just looking at me. I'll never forget that look, you know, and he's just looking at me. He didn't say anything, and I can see the pain in his eyes, you know. And I'm not just saying this, I believe I am his, you know, one of, we're 4 brothers, but he's always had a soft spot for me because I've always been the dark sheep as well at the same time, you know, and or black sheep as they call it. And and I could see that disappointment and that pain in his eyes.
Did it feel like he just didn't recognize you anymore?
It was more like he was waiting. He was thinking I'm gonna die.
And he was just thinking the moment's going to happen at any time.
I could see
so
it.
How did it feel pretending? Did you find it exhausting pretending that everything was okay?
You just. I was going to say this. You know, to play that actor and to play this charade, it's hard work, man. Honestly, you're carrying this image and you're carrying this weight, and you're just thinking, you know, I just want to let loose now. I just want to admit this is what's going on. But then you start getting fearful. You know, my wife will leave me. My parents will disown me. You know, my friends will leave me. You know, I've got one of my best friends, my business partner, who you know who he is. You know, he's been one of my rocks, man, in my life. You know, again, may Allah bless him with, you know, everything good in his life and his children. You know, he's stuck by me. You know, and many wouldn't have. And I can never repay him for that. But even fearful of, you know, he'd turn on me or what he, you know, it was just so much fear, and they just carried on playing this actor and playing this game, you know, just to cover up what you're doing.
Did you become 2 different people?
It's twin personality. In the book that we use in our recovery, it's the book of Alcoholics Anonymous. There's a section where it says we're like Dr. Jekyll and Hyde. You remember Dr. Jekyll and Hyde with twin personalities,
yes,
right?
Yes, I do, yeah. And
that's exactly what it is, you know. We normally, in front of family and friends and colleagues, we're absolutely normal. But put a drug or drink inside us, we come up, you know, we just become demons, you know. It just takes you away. And that's when you realise why these things are haram. You know, they take any type of goodness away from you, and you'll think and do things that you wouldn't even normally do. You'll cross boundaries, your morals will go out the window, you know. And it's twin personalities, man.
Which I totally understand. We've just had another interaction, actually, this time on YouTube from Jim C. Jim says, I owe Safi God and the 12-step program for my life. Safi is a recovery warrior from Jim C. Thanks for the comment, Jim.
Cheers, Jim. That. Respect, bro.
Again, see, you're sat here today because your life's very, very different. And if you're tuning in to Salaam Radio 106.2 FM just now, I've got Safyan in the studio with me today. We're discussing addiction and the realities of it. This is a part one of two as we go through this very serious topic together. One thing many families describe is that they often don't know what they are dealing with under the situation, and it's become very serious. And sometimes shame prevents conversation that could have happened much earlier. And I think being Asian as well, shame plays a bigger role, doesn't it? Because I know myself, there's a few people in the city that we've helped. He's a friend of mine actually. His mum's 70 years old and he has a very serious alcohol addiction. And I remember I found him brutally beaten up in Peterborough, and I had to take him to the hospital. And I dropped him off to the hospital, and that was a very difficult thing to do. And I remember knocking on his mum's door at 11:30 at night, and I saw her face, and she's shocked to see me. And I said, you know, I've picked him up. I hadn't seen her for like 20 years. And she looked at me, exhausted, and she said to me, "We've tried everything. He just won't leave us alone. And we don't know what else to do." And you know, it broke my heart. But obviously, just as you mentioned, the family also suffers, but you at that moment don't know what that's like because you're deep in it yourself. So you're just trying to fight fires, not thinking how the family's trying to also stick together, aren't they? We've already come to an ad break, Safyan. You're listening to Salaam Radio 106.2 FM, Friday Night Prime. We'll be back after this short break.
Stay tuned to Salaam Radio after this short ad break.
At Cake Inn, all our cakes and slices are freshly baked for that delicious taste. At Cake Inn, we bake 100% vegetarian and halal eggless fresh queen cakes. Delicious flavoured cakes for birthdays and weddings, ceremonies and all other occasions, with free customised messages, even balloons and candles too. Order for delivery or collection from Cake Inn, 489 Lincoln Road, PE1 2PE. And your cake could be ready within 2 hours. Find out more and order online at cakein.co.uk or call 01733 496 584.
What do children at Bright Bambini Montessori Nursery say about us?
I love my teachers and friends.
At Bright Bambini Montessori, we sprinkle confidence, independence, and stir the love of learning. From 18 months to 5 years, free funded places available.
Come join in the fun.
Call Bright Bambini Montessori on Peterborough 306565 or visit bbmc.uk.
At Master's Pharmacy, we put your health and convenience first. We offer free blood pressure checks and blister-packed medication. With our free same-day prescription delivery service, you can have your medication when you need it. We also offer travel vaccinations, including Hajj and Umrah, along with other services to meet all your pharmacy needs. For more information, contact Master's Pharmacy on 01733 567 208 or visit us at 303 Lincoln Road, PE1 2PH.
कश्मीर ऑर्फन्स रिलीफ ट्रस्ट कोड आप ही के अतियात से हजारों यतीम बच्चों की जिंदगियां बदल रहा है। इस रमजान मुबारक में अपनी ज़कात, सदकात, फितराना और अतियात कोर्ट को दें। नेकी और खैर के इस अमल में आपका हिस्सा अल्लाह पाक कबूल फरमाए, आमीन।
Code Educational Complex, Jatla Road, Akhtarabad, Mirpur Azad Kashmir, UK Office 0300 123 777 code.org.uk.
Craving top quality fried and grilled chicken without the high price tag? At Sam's, we make every bite unforgettable. From juicy chicken to mouth-watering burgers, taste why we're the best in town. Visit us at our brand new restaurant at 33 Westgate in the city centre or our second spot on Lincoln Road. Prefer delivery? We're on Just Eat, Uber Eats and Deliveroo. Sam's, serving up amazing chicken across the UK for over 30 years.
Already running a business but want to scale, boost profits and free up more time for the things you love? The Progressive Business Network is where business owners, mentors, investors and keynote speakers share real-world strategies for growth. Each month you'll gain practical advice, fresh ideas and powerful connections to help you work smarter, not harder. Grow your profits, grow your network, grow your freedom. Join the Progressive Business Network. Visit progressivebusinessnetwork.co.uk today. Progressive Business Network. Learn, connect, scale.
Thinking about opening a takeaway or growing your food business? speak to Isaac Wholesale in Peterborough. We work with restaurants, takeaways and QSR brands across the UK, supporting them with supply, delivery, branded packaging and growth support. Our dedicated customer growth partners work closely with you, understanding your business and your goals. From first store to multi-site growth, Isaac Wholesale works as an extension of your business, helping you grow with confidence.
You're listening to Peterborough's community radio, Salaam Radio. Salaam Radio. 106.2 FM.
Assalamu alaikum, welcome back. Tonight we're talking openly about addiction, recovery and breaking the silence surrounding these issues. If you're only just joining, our guest Safyan is in the studio with us. We're discussing his lived experience, recovery and what communities can do better. Safyan, so we were talking just before the ad break about life, there is personal responsibility, accountability, and what's taken you to this point. We spoke about your dad and that look that you had. I mean, we were just speaking just now in the ad break. It was very emotional, actually, just thinking about these things. And then we started speaking about, how the addiction affects families and the effect that it has on them as well, how you are perceived and how they are trying to deal with the situation themselves in real time because they are losing a son, a husband, a brother, etc. in real time. So how do they react to those types of situations as well? So, and we also spoke about, playing that dual role. Okay. So now you mentioned that you came back to this after you found God, and your prayers were answered, and then things started to relax a little bit. So you were able to loosen up, and then you came back to this. So now you're back into it. Talk us through what happened next.
So I'm in my early 30s now. And
so this is a decade now?
Yeah, decade's gone past.
Wow,
and, and it wasn't that bad then. I mean, it was bad, but it wasn't bad compared to what's to come.
Okay.
So I'm in my 30s now, and the drug use has gone from like once a week, and it's gone to twice a week. And I remember I was working at the time, and, you start missing work. And... you don't see you don't see it. It's a very progressive illness. It's progressive because it starts off from smoking that spliff when I was 13.
Yeah.
Now I'm doing Class A drugs.
And you're 30.
I'm 30. And now I'm using on my own. And I remember the first time I was using on my own, I was with a group of lads, and I said to him, look, one of the lads was a dealer. He was with us, and I said to him, look, give me a bag. I'm just going to go somewhere. I made something up. All I did was go and sit in my car, on my own, and use first time. And that became like a regular thing. And anybody who uses cocaine to a point where it's a lot of using, they always say they end up sitting in their car alone, sitting there and just using cocaine, and their mind just going nuts. But at that time, you think you're enjoying yourself. You're actually destroying yourself. You're not doing anything. You're just in this psychotic world of thoughts and emotions, and then you suddenly just get numbed off from everything, and hours go past. Hours go past, and I remember there's something called cocaine-induced psychosis. And that's when your nervous system is telling you can't put no more of this drug in your body, and it starts reacting. You start hearing things, you start seeing things that are not there. You start thinking people next to you are going to kill you. You start going to that kind of level. All night you're peeping out the window. And you're driving, looking backwards, and that because you think there's something that's not, and you start going into this.
Other world.
Another world. And get lost. You start becoming deluded, delusional. You start believing things that are not there. You start getting suspicious of people. And for me, I used to always think the police are going to come through my door. The SWAT, like I'm some big criminal, the SWAT team's going to walk in. I'm just sitting there. And I remember it got to a point where I'd be sleeping with a samurai sword. I just said to you, samurai sword next to my bed.
Oh my God.
And because I was that paranoid. And it was COVID time now. It wasn't. It was just before COVID. I had cameras put around the house, and I kept looking at cameras all night. And that's where my brain was going. You know?
So you're taking the drug, you're on your own, then you're going home.
Yeah.
Your thoughts are obviously going with you. You're laying in bed, you've got a samurai sword next to you, you've got your CCTV cameras on, and you're essentially just monitoring your house, thinking SWAT is going to just come in at any moment.
Or some Albanian gang's going to walk through the door. You know what I mean? Something. It's this things you create in your head.
How long did this go on for?
Quite a few years. You know? Years.
That is a very dark place to be.
And it got darker and darker. And then it got to a point where I wasn't able to use outside anymore because the psychosis would kick in straight away.
Okay.
So now I've cut off from the boys, anybody else. I'm just, in my own little zone at home.
So now you're at home?
In my car, in the driveway.
So you're in the driveway, essentially at home.
Yeah.
Right, you're at home. So now you're using at home, then you're staying at home. So you've cut yourself off from all of reality. And you're just essentially going out when you need to go buy the drug in the first place. But then you're at home, you're on your own, with your own thoughts, and this is carried on for years. What kind of effect was it happening physically in your body?
So what addiction does is it isolates you. It takes away all things that are important to you. Family, friends, work, health. Like, I'm somebody who's been in and out of the gym all my life. But then at that time, I'm not eating, Steve, forget the gym. My health's deteriorating. And your life just becomes this little prison of pain. You can't see it as pain at the time, but it's pain. Because you're just putting a drug in your body to, taper down this craving that your body, you just can't fight. You just can't fight. And it goes into autopilot now. Now you don't even need to fight. You don't even think about it. The thought comes in and you start using. It gets to that kind of point. It gets that deep where there's no thought anymore. There's no premeditation or anything like that. It's just, like they call it in recovery, the mental blank spot. You don't think about the consequences, what's going to happen, what was it like yesterday. Because as an addict, your head lies to you. It says, it won't be like last time. You won't do as much. You'll go to bed on time. You'll be all right. You'll be working more. And you believe that lie every day. And, it just makes it look like gold. It gets a pile of feces and makes it look like gold in your head. That's what addiction does. And I believe that's shaitan in your head telling you something that's bad for you is not going to be as bad. Even though yesterday, the day before teaches you it's never going to get better. It's only going to get worse. But you believe that and you fall into it again over and over.
It's very deep stuff, that is. We've had another comment on YouTube. Message says, amazing, inspiring message, brother, from Phoebe. Thanks for your message. Appreciate that. This is carried on for years now. And it carries on. And every story, Safyan, has a turning point. So what changed? Was there a single moment or did something gradually happen?
So it got to a point where I was just numb to anything. And this is going to sound a bit drastic, but I was a living corpse. I nearly missed my little brother's wedding. I didn't know if somebody died. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what was going on with work. And it was COVID now. The lockdown period, and we're at home anyway. And and I was just seeing everything. And I remember, my missus knew everything that was going on, and she couldn't help me, and nobody could. And I remember crying to her, I remember crying to my missus saying, I can't stop. I want to stop now, but I can't, because I'm seeing it now. I'm seeing what it's doing to me. I'm seeing what it's doing to those around me. My wife's going to bed crying, waking up crying. She's looking at me in disappointment. I don't feel like a man anymore. I don't feel like anything anymore. But I still can't stop. My parents are just, they're broke. My little brothers can't face me anymore. The ones who looked up to me for years, they can't face me anymore. I can't face, my business partner. I can't face my friends. I'm just, and it got to a point where, I know as Muslims, we can't commit suicide or anything like that, but I remember my rock bottom was, they say you got to hit rock bottom before you rise. And I remember I was crying my eyes out. I was alone at home and I was praying to Allah, saying, Allah, take me from this world. I can't continue like this. And Allah forgive me if that's wrong, but that's where it got to. And it's not like I had everything in life. I had a roof over my head, I had a job, I had everything, but I felt like I had nothing. And that's why I believe these things are haram, because they rip all that goodness away from you. You feel empty on the inside. They're poisons. And then, I remember I was in the masjid on i'tikaf, and Ramadan was 1 month I wouldn't touch anything. So I used to use 11 months in a year. Ramadan, I'd be locked in, I'd be in the masjid, and I was on i'tikaf in 2022, I think it was. And you know, in Ramadan you get imams from other masjids coming to collect money for, you know, mosques and charities. And this imam came from Batley, and he sat with me and he stayed the night because he was going to collect in the morning. And I started talking to him. I said, "What do you do?" You know, and he said, "I work in prison as a drug advisor or helper." And I was like, "This is from Allah. You know, I'm here in itikaf, and the imam here, and I go, Musab, I need to talk to you." And obviously he didn't know what. So he spoke to him at night and he said, "Safyan, you've been here, you've been praying, you've been doing itikaf. Has it stopped your drugs?" I go, "No." He goes, "There's a reason why Allah's put certain facilities and certain helps in the world for us to, you know, utilize them. Have you ever turned to external help? That's not something we do."
Yeah.
You know, we grew up in a community where speaking about addiction is a taboo. You don't do that.
I'm proud men.
You don't do it.
Yeah.
You don't admit, "I need help."
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know, I don't know a weakness, you know. And he said, you know, go to a counsellor. Go to rehab. Go and get help. Even then I didn't do it. So I left it at Ramadan, carried on doing what I was doing for another 6-7 months, and it got darker. And I remember one day I just couldn't handle it anymore, and I contacted this, I just Googled, you know, drug counsellor, local. It was a lady. I messaged her and she said, she could have just taken my money. She goes, "Safyan, I can't actually help you, but have you ever heard of Cocaine Anonymous?" I was like, it's one of those things at the end of the night when you Google, "How do I stop cocaine?" But when it gets to that point, you stop.
Yeah.
And I said, "No, but I know what it is." It's basically like Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, in the movies, you have the groups where they sit and talk. So it was the COVID, so it was all on Zoom. So I just logged into a meeting one day, and there was a guy sharing his story, and he was talking my story, man. You know, because we don't talk about this, the boys don't see that dark place you get to.
Yeah.
You don't know, you think you're the only person like this.
Yeah.
But when I went into these recovery rooms, and I was the only Asian in those rooms in times, you know, and this talking 2021, I think it was. And he was talking my story about the psychosis, the powerlessness that I can't stop. I keep doing it, the people I'm hurting. Like, whoa, these guys look just like me. And then he said, "I'm so many years clean." And I remember he was heroin. It says Cocaine Anonymous, but it's for all addiction.
Okay.
And and that was the start of my recovery process. You know?
So when he said he was so many years clean, did you feel like you had hope?
That's exactly what it was. You know, if this guy, and I remember he was sharing, and he was like, "The last time I used, I was found in a pub toilet with a syringe in my body, and he had so many years clean." I was like, this guy can get clean. Why can't I? Obviously, it didn't happen straight away. You know, I carried on in recovery for about a year, still couldn't get it right. And then came a moment in my life where I said, you know, I was praying to Allah that I don't want to live anymore. And it was about 10 days before Ramadan 23.
Yeah.
And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know, this is how Allah works. You know, I'm not going to drop no names, but a certain celebrity reached out to me, sports star, somebody I followed as well.
Yeah.
And he was in recovery. And in recovery, we get told to reach out to others. So, you know, we get out of self. So we remind, it's like giving dawah. You know, you speak to somebody, you talk about Allah, you remind yourself as well. So if somebody gave him my number, this guy's been in recovery for a year, he's in a bad place, reach out to him. And weirdly, I was watching a video of him a week before about recovery, and it was a few days before Ramadan. And this was the first Ramadan I thought, Ya Allah, I'm not going to be able to be clean this Ramadan, because you're always your worst at the end. And he reached out to me, and it shook me that this guy's reached out. I only watched a video of him a week before. It's just before Ramadan.
What's going on?
It shook me. You know, my
yeah.
hair standing up thinking about it now. Not on my head, on my body. Right? And and I came back into recovery. He showed me what, and that was on March 20th, 23. I've never touched a drug since that day. You know, I'm coming up to 4 years clean now, only by the grace of Allah. Alhamdulillah, you know. And so I come into recovery, and the first thing they said to me, "Are you done?" This time, the first question they asked you, recovery is not easy, man, but it's easier than addiction.
Can you describe, I mean, obviously, for someone who's not been in that scenario, could you just talk us a little bit through what happens in recovery?
There's different types of recovery. You can go into rehab, take yourself away from society, but the recovery I chose was a 12-step program.
Okay.
It's called it's a spiritual program.
Okay.
And this is why it synced with me, because Deen has always been a part of my life. And what the basics of it is that when I get to a point of addiction where I can't stop, I'm powerless. I can't stop. I've got no power to stop myself using drugs. So what's the solution? I turn to the power, you know, and that's it. It was a program set up by Christians in the 1930s, based on the book of Alcoholics Anonymous in America. It was about alcohol then. And they were a group of Christians. They believed in God, you know, and they believed that we get so lost that we've got no power to overcome this. So we need to turn to the power, our Creator. And that for us is La ilaha illallah, you know, La hawla wa la quwwata, there's no power but Allah, you know.
And with that in mind now, we're playing Khalid Sadiq on Deen.
Lovely.
Yo, before I start this verse, I think it's best that I say, I ain't pious, I ain't righteous, I ain't one of the greats. I ain't Umar, I ain't Ali, I ain't Ahlul Bayt. So now we got that straight, let me express my faith, cause all the people wanna know how you got on Deen, bro. What made you leave the scene, bro? What light did you see, bro? We see you got a beard now, so we wanna hear how this new improved Muslim has just magically appeared now. Well, let me stop you there and let me make this clear. I ain't doing this for fame, cause fam, I do not care about the people or the praise, about how loud they cheer, or if they still remember me or when I'm not here. Cause if it ain't for Allah, who am I doing it for? When the angels raise me up and ask me who is your Lord, tell me what will I say about the times I didn't pray, about the nights I'd roll around like I won't see the day, when the mountains will fall and the people will say, Ya Rabbi, send me back to earth for one more day. Give us time to repent, time to change our ways. The clocks will not go back and you can't skip your grave. I swear it broke my heart the night I heard Twan died, cause it didn't make no sense. How could they kill my guy? I swear I broke straight down. Why is this life so crazy? I crumbled on that floor that night, I cried like a baby. Then I wiped my tears, I swear the truth was clear. This life is temporary, just a couple of years. But then where do we go? God, tell me, what do we do? And don't tell me that I'm crazy, cause you're thinking it too. So I took my time, I had to study the truth, cause everyone was telling me that their religion was true. So I looked in deep, it's like my heart was numb, but a light was coming out saying Allah is the one, and he ain't no man, a human ain't my savior. I don't pray to the creation, fam, I praise the Creator. I'm trying to tell my cousin when I visit the pen, I'ma bring him a Quran next time I visit again, cause it makes me think, how does a heart get clean? So many man that go to jail but somehow still find a deen, and it ain't by chance, there's no smoke in the screen. When you put a man in darkness, then the light can be seen. It's like I think about my brother when I cry and I pray, cause I'm trying to give him dawah, trying to show him the way, show him party ain't it worth it, tell him more every day. But then it gets to a point when what more can you say? But I need to guide him proper, I gotta show him the path, cause I didn't have no man to show me how to pray my salah, and I didn't have no man to show me how to connect with Allah, and I didn't have no man to show me how to read the Quran. And I'm just seeking out the truth, so it's the deen that I chose. But I'm fighting my own demons, I can feel them getting close. Devil whispers in my chest, trying to make my heart colder. But sometimes it feels like it's right there on my shoulder, telling me to go back to the life that I left, telling me I'm missing out and that this life is the best. Me and you ain't finished, Khalid, cause I'm still in your head, and I'll be right there in your ear until the day if it dead.
On Deen, Khalid Sadiq, mashallah. If you're just tuning into Salaam Radio 106.2 FM, I have Safyan in the studio with me talking about addiction, stigma, lived experience. Safyan, would you say, so you were talking about the 12-step program. Could you, just at this point, could you just share how people can get, if somebody's going through this at the moment, how can somebody contact an organisation or something like this out there?
So firstly, the program is free. It's completely free. I will just go on Cocaine Anonymous UK, and they'll have about the program there, the meeting links. They're all Zoom. You got face-to-face in Peterborough on a Tuesday night, 7:30 as well, in Aspire building. If you want to go face-to-face, but some people might not feel comfortable doing that, so you Zoom, you can switch your camera off, and it starts with somebody sharing. And the way it works is you get a sponsor, and the sponsor is another addict who's got clean, and will run you through the program. I'm not going to go into how the program works. That's experience for themselves. But yeah, just log into the meetings. You know, links. I've got all the links on my phone as well. There's a meeting throughout the day. You know, all day, all over the world. You know, it's a massive network. You know, massive fellowship, and just get plugged in, man. You know, and you'll see the solution there.
Mashallah, can I just say, really proud of you for coming out the other side of it. There's been quite a lot of comments that have come in and messages. I've got a message here saying, "Can you ask Safyan, was asking for help harder than the addiction itself?"
It took me maybe 8 years to ask for help.
8 years?
Yeah.
Well, that's another anonymous text that we received asking that question. We've got another one. What should families do differently, especially as you're from the Asian family? That's from Samina.
So firstly, I think what our families struggle, they fall into denial and shame, right?
Yeah, because obviously we're Asian families are like that.
Yeah, and we don't want to admit it, and we'd rather, you know, just brush it under the carpet, you know, and all that does is you're watching somebody die in your family, you know, in your house, and the best thing is honesty. Honesty is the best thing.
You are right. I mean, look, we've had situations where, somebody's going through some sort of addiction situation in the family, just because they don't want to, have shame or honor and so on, they will watch their son, daughter, sibling go through essentially hell.
My brothers confronted me, and I'll never forget that.
That's a position of love, surely.
And I hated it at the time.
Yeah,
and I remember I was in the front room, all three of them come in, one older than me, two younger, and they just said, what are you doing, man? What are you doing to yourself? They were seeing what I was doing. They were hurt. They were hurt. They were angry. All kinds of emotions.
Yeah. Naturally.
Yeah, and they got to a point where they gave up as well. And they said, look, we're only concerned about mum and dad now. What this is the effect it's going to have on mum and dad. We know you're not going to listen. But the truth is, I remember saying to them, you guys don't understand. I can't stop. Even if I want, because by the last 5-6 years, I hated it. I wasn't enjoying it. You stopped enjoying it years ago, but I just couldn't stop. I would really want to stop, but I just couldn't. The obsession, the cravings were so strong that just overtook every time. Failed every time. And families, you should confront. If there's somebody, even if you've got a suspicion, speak to them. Speak to them.
What's it like now?
What do you mean?
What's life like now with mum and dad?
For me?
Yeah.
I live an amazing life today, alhamdulillah. Honestly, today I get to help other people. I get to sponsor the people in recovery. That's a blessing in itself. Me helping someone, I never thought I'd be able to do that. I get to share, my story. I'm a big part of my family life. My mum and dad can rely on me. He's actually going to turn up. I go to work. As you know, I go to work. My missus and me. That's that relationship's repaired. Me and my business partner, legend he is, he's my brother, he still is, and that relationship's repaired. My connection with Allah's connected,
Mashallah,
and my health's restored,
Mashallah. And I'd say to you, but saying it now as well, which is, if you can change your life in the lifetime of the people who love you, they will respect you more, because they're always going to be there. But they want to see you recover. They want to see the other side of you, because they know what you're really capable of. They don't want to leave this dunya, this world, knowing that your heart was broken, they couldn't do enough for you. But to see you turn your life around, Safyan, and be in a situation where your parents are going to be proud of you, as you mentioned, all these other people are going to be proud of you, and you're sat here as a living example, a British Asian Muslim from the city, gone through decades of significant drug use, and of course, the mental health issues that you've had go through it as well. And we just don't talk about this enough, do we?
No. And communication is a big problem, and I think, obviously, we're going to talk about this on the other show anyway.
Yeah, we're going to have a part 2 to this, where we'll be talking about what's missing in the city, what other good things that need to come, how people need to get together, of course.
But I think in the families, that barrier of communication needs to be broken. And I just want to say one thing that just reminded me, when you asked about where my life turned, I remember somebody saying to me, said that, Safyan, and this thought rocked me, that I will return to Allah the way I leave this world. And that, I remember, it shook me, even though I knew that before, but this is the first time I actually thought about it, that if I'm intoxicated, or if I'm in a haram state, or if I'm drunk, or if I'm in a bad place, and I leave this world, may Allah protect us all from that, I will stand in front of Allah in that way.
You will. And I can tell you that whilst I was preparing myself for this show, there's somebody that we know in the city as well, said almost verbatim what you've just said. He said to me that he was a hardcore alcoholic and drug user, and he was 25-30 years alcohol and drug user, Muslim guy from the city, and he was no longer getting drunk, and he was no longer getting high, and he was essentially saying to himself, I'm going to end up getting lifted like this. I need to stop, because I'm going to get, and that fear, something in his heart, that fear of being found in that state and then raised in that state, is what pushed him to stop.
I can see the times coming. I just wanted to say one thing.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to reach out to the person who's still suffering out there, if they're listening. Firstly, it's only going to get worse, so stop lying to yourself. Stop believing your own rubbish. It's only going to get darker. And there is a solution. There is a way out. So if your head and shaitan's telling you that you're done for, there's no way back for you, this is the verse in the Quran that Allah says, La taqnatu min rahmatillah. Do not despair of the mercy of Allah. Shaitan tries to take you away from that, thinking you've gone too far now. There's no return for you. Allah is most merciful. Allah is most kind. So, there is help out there. And you're not in this alone. There's support out there. But you've got to reach out. You've got to be ready. And if you're done with that horrific life that you're showing the world is beautiful. And we both know it's not. All of us know it's not. There's a way out. You know, reach out, get help, because it kills people, man, and it's killing people around everywhere.
Absolutely, there is a lot of help out there. More messages are coming in, Safyan. We've got Salaam Brothers. It's Ishi here. Can I just say, this story has moved me. Safyan is my brother, and it's upsetting to see what he went through. So proud of what he has done to come through this evil. Another person, Ibi, is saying Safyan is a top lad. The three of us need to get a bite, eat together. So I'm not sure which three that would be.
I know exactly who that is.
Okay, but Zaghal have for your comments.
He still owes
you, does he? Yeah. Just take him express. I'm sure there's other places around in Peterborough as well, of course. It's an amazing conversation, by the way, a topic that really needs to be spoken about more and something that really needs community action. Totally agree with you there, Ibi. We'll be dealing with that, of course, discussing it further in part 2, inshallah, in the coming weeks. So appreciate your comments on our live streams and all the support, of course, for you, Safyan. There's a lot of love for you in the comments, lots of people commenting in, you know, and of course, we're coming towards the end of the show now as well. So I just want to say, Safyan, thank you so much for your honesty. Thank you for trusting us with your story, and thank you for helping start a conversation that many people desperately need to hear. And to everyone listening tonight, if this program has resonated with you or someone you love, please remember that asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness. Support is available through your GP, local drug and alcoholic services, and organizations such as Talk to Frank and Mind and Cocaine Anonymous. If you feel that you or someone else is in immediate danger, then of course call 999. And if you are in an emotional crisis, Samaritans are available 24 hours a day on 116 123. Next week, we'll continue this special series by widening the conversation beyond the individual, looking at the role of our communities, leadership, and how we can build together support networks. You've been listening to Friday Night Prime live on Salaam Radio 106.2 FM. I've been Akil.